There are 3 steps that you can use to manage frustrations as an athlete. So I want you to think about the last time that you got really frustrated during a game. Was it after a mistake? Was it after coach yelled at you? Was it after a teammate made a mistake? We know that frustrations, when you experience them during games, sometimes they can be helpful, especially if you get frustrated over a mistake that you made, makes you play a little bit more aggressively, and your performance actually increases. But whenever we're trying to figure out how to manage frustration, so if you're watching this video trying to figure out how can you manage frustrations, I'm going to guess that these frustrations are actually hurting your performance. So the first step that you can use if you want to manage frustrations better during a game is you want to identify your beliefs. So your beliefs are going to be, the feelings that you have, the way that you think in these moments that are leading to the frustration. But what's interesting about this is they can also be beliefs you have in general that are influencing you getting more frustrated in the first place. A very, very simple example of this, and a very common example, is the idea that mistakes are bad, right? So if you hold to the belief that mistakes are bad, and mistakes mean that you did something wrong and they're just only seen as a negative, it makes a lot more sense if you make a mistake during a game that you're going to get frustrated. Another example would be the belief that you have to play perfectly so you can't make any mistakes. Now, if you have that belief, then we know that the first mistake you make, or the first sign that you're going to make a mistake during a game, that can cause incredible levels of frustration since you didn't meet your goal that day, which was to play perfectly. So when we identify your beliefs first, this shows us what is the true reason why you're getting frustrated. What are the thoughts you have? What are the beliefs you have in that moment or in relation to that situation that are causing you to get the most frustrated? Now, an exercise that you can do to help identify these beliefs in these moments is to list out all the situations when you do normally get frustrated during games. Then what you can do is, once you've listed out those situations, go back and think, what is the belief I have that is leading to me getting so frustrated? And then write that belief down, because it's going to come in handy as we move on to this next step. Because step number 2 is you want to reframe your beliefs. Once you've identified, okay, the belief I have is I can't make any mistakes, I have to play perfectly during the game. Well, then we need to reframe that belief, because that's going to really help us long term when it comes to managing these frustrations. And so a little bit of a side note here, these first 2 steps for managing frustrations are more of a long-term kind of solution, right? Because if we change your beliefs long-term, we know that naturally that frustration is going to go down. But in step number 3, that's where we're going to talk about more of an in-the-moment strategy. Let's go off of the example of I can't make any mistakes, so I need to play perfectly. If you have that belief, what if you reframed it to I accept mistakes, I learn from them, and I move on quickly? If all of a sudden we start to view mistakes more as something productive, something that we can use to learn, then they aren't something that is so negative anymore. A great example of this comes from an athlete that I was working with last month, and we spent a lot of time working on helping him manage the frustration he felt after he made mistakes. Honestly, the best thing for him, the thing that helped more than anything else, was this idea of reminding himself, I accept mistakes and I learn from them. I know it sounds incredibly simple, but if you honestly tell yourself, I accept mistakes and I learn from them, and mistakes become something that only make you better as a player, and you see them that way, it's going to be a lot easier for you to manage those frustrations in the moment. And then step number 3, what you want to do is you want to create a strategy in the moment for calming yourself down. And this is where we can use something known as a thought-stopping phrase. A thought-stopping phrase is where we recognize that there are all these racing thoughts, these frustrating thoughts filling your head once you make a mistake, and you need to stop those thoughts in their track. So a very, very simple thought-stopping phrase is let it go, take a breath, move on. Or let it go, take a breath, focus on the next play. Now, you notice that middle part, take a breath, that is a very important piece to managing frustration. You know how when you feel frustrated during a game, you got all that energy inside of you, feeling very angry, you're feeling very tense? Well, we need to work on calming you down in those moments. And focusing on taking some deep breaths is one of the best ways to really calm yourself down. So what you can do is you just come up with this thought-stopping phrase, and you can even just try the one I gave, let it go, take a breath, focus on the next play. You want to memorize it. And then you want to apply it in those moments. Once you start to recognize and become more aware that, I get frustrated in these moments, this is the specific situation where I am becoming frustrated, and then you memorize this thought-stopping phrase and you apply it, you're going to start seeing that frustration you feel minimize. Now, one important piece to remember is that we're not trying to reduce or eliminate all frustration. I said the first two steps, identifying your beliefs and reframing your beliefs, long term, they're going to start minimizing the amount of frustration you feel, and that's true. But to be honest with you, you're probably always going to feel a little bit frustrated when you make a mistake, when your teammates make a mistake, when your coaches yell at you, when there's a bad call from the official. All of that is natural to get frustrated by and to have frustrate you. But what's important is you limit how long you stay frustrated, right? So over time, reframing those beliefs is definitely going to help. But more in the short term, make sure you apply that third step, which is to use your thought-stopping phrase to stop that frustration in its tracks and reduce the amount of time that you do stay frustrated. And what's going to happen is if you reduce the amount of time you stay frustrated, you're reducing the negative impact that frustration has on your performance. Now, another element of dealing with frustrations during sports is making sure you feel confident moving forward after you make a mistake or after something negative happens. So what I've done right here is I've linked another video that goes into detail on some tools that you can use to begin building your confidence as an athlete. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training.